Okay, good morning. It's 10:30, so I think we've probably got all the seats filled up, and we can start. Good morning. Welcome to a little seminar on how to franchise your business. In the next 45 minutes, I'm going to walk through some of the key factors that you might need to consider in the journey towards franchising. In that time, I'll cover some highlights, but inevitably one won't be able to talk about everything. So these will be some pointers to achieving your goal to grow your business through franchising. If you like what you hear, we've got some notes that we can provide to you afterwards, and on the seat you had a little form to fill in. If you care to fill that in, we can then email the notes to you, so you needn't be too busy writing things down just now. Who are we? We're Ashtons Franchising. We're a company that's been helping people to grow through franchising since 1981. We're experienced, we're a group of people, we're a one-stop shop for franchising. We're affiliated to the British Franchise Association, who run this exhibition, and we're looking to help people to discover four things. Firstly, should they franchise? Could they franchise? What would be the process? And how would they recruit franchisees? And if we cover those four topics for you in the next 45 minutes, we can then take questions at the end. But if you have something you particularly want to ask, then please just do say straight away and we'll cover the point. So finally, I just want to say that the presentation is intended to be informative, but it's inevitable that you won't hear everything that you want to. So we are at stand C100, which is just over the way. And if you want to come and have a chat afterwards, we'd be very happy to see you. So a little journey just to start with through some of the brands that franchise, helping you to understand perhaps why they did it, and perhaps to see some similarities with yourselves, and also to give you some understanding about the way they went around things. First up is Swinton, which is an insurance brokerage that doesn't franchise today, but which grew through franchising. And the reason they chose to adopt the franchise model was because they were a technical business that required trained people with qualifications, insurance brokerage. They had a need to grow the business. They were losing managers and they wanted to retain staff. So you could use franchising as a way to retain people perhaps that you're beginning to see leave your business to set up in competition against you. And at the same time, they wanted to grow in order to be able to have a larger business and be able to get better product from the insurance providers to give themselves a competitive advantage. So they realized that if they grew through franchising quite quickly, they could keep managers, scale up, and potentially also persuade single opponent brokerages to come in under their umbrella, which is called conversion franchising. So the message there for you maybe is that you could find your franchisees either as brand new to franchising or possibly by bringing in people who would otherwise be a competitor but who perhaps don't have as good an idea about what they're doing as you do. Subway is a brand that started in 1965 and has grown today to be the largest by number of locations in the world, even outstripping McDonald's. And it was essentially a very simple operation. But it's a simple operation that's done consistently well. So wherever you go, you know that you're going to get the same quality experience in terms of the food, the speed of it, and the menu. Not much can go wrong if the franchisee follows that system, because there isn't much to go wrong. So that brand has grown very successfully from a college kid looking to pay his way through college, making some sandwiches on the side and suddenly realizing that he had a bit of a business. Message there is, any business can be franchised if it has a good systemized approach and you pay attention to the detail and you have an offer that the customer, the end user, really, really wants. In 1976, Anita Roddick, who was the founder of Body Shop, set up in franchising. She wanted to grow the business and she wanted to grow it in her own ethical fashion, because the business was about ethical products. It was about carefully sourced cosmetics and that sort of thing. And so she set the business up, and initially the early franchisees were lucky guys because they were given the opportunity for quite large territories, able to open under a development agreement 5 or 6 stores. And those stores, of course, went on to become phenomenally successful. And the business itself was sold to L'Oreal, I think about 5 years ago, and made Anita and her husband a lot of money. There's a story, and whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's always a nice one to tell, that when she, in the early days, was recruiting franchisees, she made a point along the discussion always to go to meet them in their home, which is something actually when you recruit franchisees you would probably want to do anyhow, to check out how people are in their own environment. But she had another thing for doing it. Her thing was that halfway through she would find a reason to go to the bathroom, and she was looking to see whether the lady of the house had ethical products in the house itself. And if there wasn't this ethical approach at home, then she didn't want them as her franchisees. As I say, it's a story. I'd like to think it's true. 1992, CEX started in business, and it's a business that buys and sells pre-owned goods, telephones, computers, gadgets, really. You've probably seen one on the high street near you. When they got to 16 stores trading and knew what they were doing and had a certain IT structure around them, they started franchising. And I think that was about 8 years ago when I first met them. And they've now gone on to have over 500 stores nationally and internationally. They're continuing to expand into a number of different countries. And the message with that brand is that if you've got a really well put together proposition for the customer, which will last through good times, recessions, booms, busts, that business can be replicated not just in the UK but also internationally. And the model that they adopted was to open some stores themselves and some stores through franchising. The point here perhaps for you is you don't have to just go franchising, you can continue to run company development in parallel with franchising if you choose to do so. And the USP of that brand as far as the franchisee is concerned is the IT system that runs the business. Because essentially what they're doing is they're buying and selling what should you say, tablets, laptops or whatever, and there's a price to buy them at and there's a price to sell them at. So when there is a scarcity of supply, the price can go up. When there's a great supply, the price comes down. But always they match it in the middle. So their secret is to have a really good IT system that scours the market, knows what it's doing, and the franchisees therefore have the support of that to be able to buy and sell at the right price and make money. Plus the fact that franchisees can trade items between stores. It's a good business model. Belvoir, I don't think they're in this particular exhibition, but they are a letting agency. And they started off the back of a guy who was in the RAF. He had a couple of properties which were being managed for him by an estate agent, because that's the way it was when he was doing this. He wasn't that impressed with the service, and when he left the RAF, he took those places back, and he managed his own rentals. And as happens in these things, friends started to say, could you look after my place? Could you look after my place? And suddenly he'd got a business. And that business has grown and grown, and it went public in 2015. He raised a considerable amount of money, and since then has gone on the acquisition trail. Message here is that a simple service, correctly delivered, can really scale up and can take you to the point where you could make considerable capital gain by floating your business. The other benefit he had perhaps was he saw a trend. When he was beginning first to let property, most property was still in owner occupancy. But we've seen a great shift over the years now towards letting, and so he was a man of the moment, if you like. So sometimes franchise businesses grow very much because they are of the moment. The stand immediately behind you called Flip Out is a trampoline park. And if you've seen just recently, suddenly trampoline parks are everywhere. Now, whether they are fashion and fad, I don't know. They're considerable investment, and we like to think they're there for the long term. Certainly in Australia and the States, they are a big thing. The point about those things, though, is that they are there because they should be there for the long term. And your franchise business, if you are going to franchise, should be capable of being sustained for the long term and not just be a flash in the pan. Perhaps as we saw 5, 6, 7 years ago, juice bars were all the go, but they never really had enough margin in them, and there wasn't enough market for them to be successfully grown through franchising. In 1995, Tax Assist Direct was born. Back then it was simply called Tax Assist Bookkeeping, and essentially what it did was it did people's tax returns. It was born out of the fact that the government introduced legislation that said we've got to fill in our own tax return, and a bright accountant thought, do you know what, I bet not many people want to do that. I reckon we can do that for 50 quid a time. Let's have a go. And we did a bit of work with him on it, but he was very clever. He was able to work. He got a good team around him, and the business started to grow just doing that. But it changed, and the message for you here is your business is probably going to change. The business sector that you're in is bound to develop over time. And that business changed and was developed because customers started to say, I've got a small business. Could you look after my books? Could you do this? Could you do that? And the franchisees took the message back to the franchisor and said, can we do this? And he thought, yep, I can see an opportunity to be a different sort of accountancy practice. Some of those early days franchisees didn't really want to do what the business was becoming, and some of them didn't perhaps have the capability to do it. So the franchisor found a way to let them move on successfully. And today that business is the 21st largest by fee income in the UK. It's got over 200 stores on the high street. It's a different sort of accountancy. It's got a master in Ireland, a master in Canada, a master in Australia. In other words, a replica of them in those countries being run in that way by a substantial investor. It's a good success story from a bright idea of a simple service. All these things I'm mentioning can give you the belief that the business that you have, if you've got your mind, if you put your mind to it, can go on to achieve great things. We have technical businesses like Business Doctors, which essentially is a consulting business that has succeeded by bringing in good franchisees with brains to follow a business model, but also to impact with their own skill and experience with their customers. Platinum Property Partners is an interesting concept. It's a different sort of franchise. In essence, what it does, it teaches people to buy and invest in properties that they then turn into homes in multiple occupation. The founders of Platinum had a way of doing things, and their franchisees have bought that know-how and that support. They don't trade with anybody else. They are just themselves doing what they do. But it's a good way of getting a great piece of knowledge out into the market by getting people to pay you to become your franchisee and then go on paying you a fee for your support. Large brands, Orange is familiar, O2 also has franchised. These large brands want to grow, and they know that actually it's a challenge to have a really first-class service in the store when you have managers who come and go. If you can have franchisees who've got skin in the game, who've got commitment, who are locked in, there's usually a much better outcome in that store than if it's a managed store. YouMove is innovative because it was an online estate agency, no bricks and mortar, pure online, has gone on to be a very successful and fast-growing franchise and was recently bought by a rival letting agency so that it's now part of a bigger business. And then finally we've got a unique business called Project Minor, which is the world's first gaming franchise. Virtually a unique thing where the franchisee sells people the opportunity to partake in this game and takes a margin on the back of it. So that little whistle through there shows you a number of different concepts, different sorts of business: retail, food, service, business to business, business to consumer. All those things could be franchised as long as they've got certain characteristics. So let's just think about the first thing, the advantages and benefits of franchising your business. Why would you franchise? In a small room, I might ask you all to tell me what you think, but we won't try and do that now. So I'll tell you what most people say. They say, we want to grow our business, and we want to grow it more quickly than we can do from our own financial resources. And secondly, we don't really want to employ any more staff. Most people will say the hardest thing about running a business is keeping the staff happy, recruiting the right people, and developing them. Whereas if you've got franchisees who've got skin in the game, as I mentioned earlier, whose business it is, they have a passion for it that managers tend not to have. Furthermore, because they are local in their area and it is their business, they will probably do more around the business development than you would reasonably expect a manager to do. And they'll probably be better connected. They will know the area in a way that a business working 120 miles away from its location would know. You can get first mover advantage. If you have a business that's got something good about it and you know that other competition is coming along and you need to move ahead to knock them out of the way, but you don't have so much money to do it yourselves, then you could look at franchising as a way forward. And it also gives you the ability to keep your costs in the middle of the business lean, because essentially the management and the day-to-day running of those stores and the recruitment of staff in them, or locations or whatever it is run by the franchisee and not by you as the franchisor. So you don't need a big overhead in terms of premises, which you would do if you were a normal business trading. But if franchising was so great, you say, or you might say, why aren't there hundreds and thousands of franchise business in the UK? And the answer is it doesn't suit everybody. And I'll talk about the characteristics that you might want to look at. But people also say, well, actually, we're concerned about brand. We're concerned about risking our business in somebody else's hands. That's usually a first thing that people want to ask about and understand how to control. And I can say this, you cannot eliminate risk in franchising your business. From time to time, a franchisee will do something stupid, and it will be in the public eye. The thing you have to do then is to work out how to contain the damage and how to minimize it, or better still, how to make sure that you're not exposed in the first place. Strongest franchise businesses have a really good training program, a very careful selection program, and they support and monitor their franchisees throughout the life of the relationship. The franchisee, in turn, knows that they should follow a system which is trained into them, which is written in a manual, and which they have the opportunity to update regularly with their business development manager. If you put those things in place, you reduce the likelihood of brand problems in the fullness of time. But you cannot eliminate them. There'll always be some franchisee who thinks he can buy some inferior product and pass it off as your own product, and inevitably they get caught. And there is a story going around at the moment of a franchisee who did just that thing, and his franchisor found him out, and the next day the shop was closed and the franchisee was out of business. So that's what they risk. They risk actually losing their investment, they risk losing their business, because the contract, the legal agreement, will specifically say, these are the things you can do, these are the things you can't do, and if you are out of order on the major things, we have the right to terminate the franchise relationship. Now that's a control strength which is worth remembering. Is your business franchisable? Here's the question. 5 key things to think about. Firstly, is the business proven and trading? If it's an idea, or if it's something that's been going just a very short time, then it may be franchisable, but it isn't franchisable today. The point of offering franchises is that the franchisee buys your knowledge, your experience, and your mistakes. All the things you've done in the past that have developed the business, some of them have worked, some of them haven't worked. You know that. You've spent money and wasted it. But the things that you've done wrong in the past, you will tell a franchisee not to do. They're buying your knowledge, they're buying your know-how. So if your business is very young, you probably haven't really traded long enough to work out where the pitfalls are. You maybe haven't yet learned where the seasonality is. Maybe you haven't understood whether the business model will travel from one location to another. So my advice would be, don't try to franchise too soon, because you'll spend money, you'll spend time, but a potential franchisee will very quickly start asking questions that you won't be able to answer, and it will be difficult for you to recruit. Second thing, is the business profitable? And by profitable, I mean at the operating level. As a business person, you are probably investing all the time in R&D, in your website, in new ideas. That is what franchisors do. It isn't what a franchisee does. The franchisee relies on you to do that. So what we're looking at is the business operating at a profit on the ground? And is that profit sufficient to give the franchisee a return on their investment? In other words, can they recover their investment over the life of the franchise, which is usually 5 years, longer if it's a big investment franchise, but usually 5. And at the end of that 5, they may not renew, or you may not want to renew them. So they had to be able to recover that money over that first 5 years. Can they recover that investment? Can they get a living? Not that we expect them to make money from the off, because most people starting a business are not going to be profitable from day one, unless it's a very simple cash-generating business. But they will make money, otherwise why would they become a franchisee, and why would you want them to be your franchisee? So can it be profitable enough to make franchisees interested? Third, is the business systemized or systemizable? Most businesses, when we start working with them, have the capability to put together good quality systems, even if they're not yet as systemized as they should be. But if yours is a very ad hoc business, if it's the sort of business where only you can run it, if it's the difference between Pizza Express, which has got a very tight menu and a proper approach, and a corner cafe where the lady cooks stuff according to what's fresh in the market on the day, then the corner shop can't be franchised, Pizza Express can. So we need to see your business as capable of being systemized and replicated. Fourth, will the business travel? The Blackpool Tower is great in Blackpool, but would we really want one in every town across the country? There's a uniqueness about it. So just think about, is what we do in demand across the UK? If it's not, then possibly, if it's only a regional concept, you might not be able to scale it up enough to get a return on your time and investment in franchising. And lastly, the fifth question is, are you as individuals ready to help others to succeed in franchising? Are you the sort of people that enjoy helping others to succeed? Because what you're about to do is start another business. You're not making widgets anymore, you're not frying burgers, you're helping somebody else to make widgets and somebody else to fry burgers. You are now in the business of training and supporting and developing people to follow your business model. And along the way, there will be hassle. Not every franchisee is good news. Most of them are very nice people. They're all in it for the right reason, but some of them actually can't do it. And some will get difficult. So you have to know that you've got the capability and the resilience to support and train people while they grow into it, and to be willing to support your franchisees when a rogue misbehaves and is damaging the brand by getting rid of him. You've got to be hard sometimes. Sometimes you've got to be soft. But you're about to run a business helping other people. So think about those things. And you might also just like, when you get back to your office, to go onto our website, because on there is a little questionnaire with 10 questions, and there are various grades. And you can grade yourself as to where you are in your journey towards being ready to franchise. So, proven, profitable, sustainable, replicable, with a character and a commitment about it that you have and you intend to help other people to develop. Let's talk about failure. As I said, not every franchisee succeeds, and not every franchisor succeeds. Franchisors don't succeed sometimes because actually they haven't thought it through well enough. They haven't taken good advice and guidance. They've gone into the marketplace casually. They've launched their franchise. They may have got started, but quite quickly they start to get into difficult relationships with their franchisees because they don't know how to handle relationships and they don't know what they should be doing. And then those first franchisees falter, they don't succeed, and that franchisor disappears. Sometimes franchisors start on the journey to franchising, but they don't have enough money to see it through. And you need to know that you will have to put some capital into this to make it work. And how much capital that is dependent on quite a number of factors. What is your ambition? How big is the business? How well systemized and developed is it at the moment? How much support do you want from consultants? Do you have your manuals written? Do you want somebody to write them? The list goes on. you will need capital, and you need somebody perhaps to talk with you to tell you how much that might be. Hence my suggestion you come and talk to us after the talk. But also know that not only might you fail because of lack of capital, but so also might potential franchisees fail. I mentioned earlier that franchisees will need to have a certain amount of capital to get started, and that they won't make money straight away in business unless it's a very simple operation. So that means they will need to have working capital. Now, our experience is that lots of people who apply for franchises are usually very keen to join, they want to do it, and maybe they're spending their inheritance, their redundancy payment, a silver bullet savings because they're about to change direction, and they're putting everything into it. And maybe they've had to borrow a bit, borrow from the mother-in-law, sell a car, who knows what. The chances are that if they haven't got enough money and they have exhausted their resources, when they start in business and something goes wrong, they won't have a fallback position, which means it will be difficult for them to raise any more money at the bank. They won't be able to continue to trade, and they'll go out of business. And for you, that would be bad news because you don't want to see franchisees failing. And for them, it would be bad news. So when you first recruit franchisees, really make sure you know where their money came from, make sure they've got enough, and make sure they do a good business plan that includes what it's going to cost them to run their home life as well as to run their business life through to the point when they get to break even and into profit. As a franchisor, be careful in expanding too quickly. Unless you are a substantial business, and most of the people who start in franchising are SMEs, small business enterprises, unless you are a substantial business, you will only be able to take on a certain number of franchisees initially and train them and get them into the market and support them while they start. If you take on, say, 3 or 4 initially and work with them and get them through to the point when they are successful and they're happy and they say good things about you, you will have built a platform to then go on to your next number of franchisees. But I've seen people come to us saying, well, we want to open with 10 or 15 franchisees in year 1. And I think, this is bonkers. There's 2 of you. You're a small business. You know that it's going to take you time to find franchisees to start with. Even for straightforward businesses, from the point when somebody first talks to you through to sign up, is something in the order of 4 to 6 months. If we're talking about retail concepts where you need a location, and particularly in food and beverage where you sometimes have to go for somewhere with certain planning consents before you can trade from it, it can take up to a year. Now, trying to bring on a lot of people, search for premises, train them, support them, get the first ones trading, and then rush off and recruit the next ones, and then rush off and recruit the next ones, is likely to be a real challenge. And if you do that, and you haven't got enough resources to support those franchisees, the first ones will be left to their own devices, and they will not get on very well. And if they start to flag, they'll be on your case every 5 minutes. They'll be ringing you up. They're not happy. But you haven't got time to attend to them because you're transferring your attention to these people. And so possibly they'll go under. Or you'll get a very bad reputation with your network. You'll be firefighting like crazy. It doesn't make sense. So take your time. Make sure, three key things to think about here. Get some expertise behind you. Make sure you've got enough money. And don't try and grow too quickly. Which is a nice little advert for saying to you, involve a consultancy. Us maybe. Any consultancy that's a BFA affiliated consultant will give you sound advice, save you time, save you money, and share experiences that you can't find in a book. There's a lot of stuff you can download from the internet. You can download a legal agreement if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend it. If you ask a franchise lawyer what sort of franchisor they like somebody who's downloaded an agreement and done it themselves, because they soon get into difficulty with their franchisees. They can't rely on the agreement, and the lawyer makes lots of money trying to sort things out for them. So message there also, make sure you get a good lawyer. But get the experience and the know-how of how things work in franchising from somebody who's been there before. So talking about things to be aware of, now think about things that are good to think about, things that will be about success. Success is about you having a really good business that works well at the moment. A service. A business that has systems. a business that has training capability. Now imagine you've put all those things together and you want to start franchising. Now you need to think about, how am I going to do it? And there are 2 or 3 different ways in which you might do it. At the very basic level, let's say man in van, whether it's knocking dents out of cars, whether it's oven cleaning, whether it's gardening. Fundamentally, it's probably man in van. Straightforward, lots of franchisees, train them up, they'll do a good job, they'll learn, they'll take pride in their work, and you will have a network of people who will provide you with regular revenue, nice and easy, quite successful. Now that's fine if you're ready to have a business that is effectively around lots of franchisees. That doesn't suit everybody, and it doesn't suit every system. Some businesses are set up immediately to employ people. We would call those a management franchise. And your management franchisee usually will start the business. They might trade on their own to begin with, but their objective will be to employ people. And you will probably give them a larger territory, a larger area in which to trade. When you franchise, you will need to think about mapping out the UK in order to be able to give your franchisees equal territories in which to operate. I wouldn't say you should do it straight away, because it's expensive and it's a cost that you might not necessarily need at the outset. But when you've got your first few franchisees, you'll give them a slightly more generous area, and then you'll work out from that how it's gone, and then you can get more specific about it a little later down the line. But those management franchisees have a slightly larger area, they operate within it, and they have the objective of employing people. And that means you'll have less franchisees yourself to work with. In retail and in food and beverage, a third model is to have what's called a development agreement. The idea of that one is that somebody comes to you who is reasonably well resourced financially and capable from a business point of view, and they want to open 4 stores in an area over a period of time. And you would write a development agreement for them that gives them the rights to have those 4 stores. A word of advice there, don't immediately offer them that exclusive area, but give them the right to open the first store with the option to open numbers 2, 3 and 4 within an agreed period of time, provided the first store trades well. If you give them a footprint for 4 stores straight away, and the first one doesn't go according to plan, they may not have the ability to open the next 3, which means you're locked out of the territory that you've given them until you can sort it out with that particular person. Legally, you're entering into a contract with your franchisee. So as a franchisor setting up a business, one of the first things you're going to need to do after you've had a consultant working with you to get it ready is to get a legal agreement put together that defines the relationship between you and the franchisee. It sets out what you are going to do for them, what they're going to do for you, the term, their right to resell, what happens in the event of bankruptcy of the franchisee, death of the franchisee, and a million other things. There's so much that can go into a good legal agreement. But that agreement fundamentally gives them the right to the brand, the systems and the knowledge to trade in a location. Note it gives the right to use of the brand. So, question for you. How many of you have registered a trademark for your business? 1, 2. Very few of you. Very few of you. So those that have, great. Those that haven't and you want to franchise, think about getting that done fairly soon. And the reason for that is that when you franchise, your franchisee expects you to have the ability to control the brand, to stop others setting up, pretending to be the brand that you are. If you don't have that ability, if you can't defend it, then the franchisee is going to ask questions. And certainly any lawyer that the franchisee refers to when they're doing their due diligence and reading through the legal agreement that you've prepared, that lawyer will have a look around, and if he sees you haven't registered the trademark, he'll begin to wonder how good you are as a franchisor, and he will ask questions. So the opportunity you're providing to the franchisee is a profitable business relationship where each of you is going to benefit, what we essentially call a business in a box, a turnkey package. Franchising, actually the full phrase is full business format franchising, is about not providing people just with the knowledge to fry the burger, not just with the raw burger patty, but actually the ability to run a business, to recruit people, to hire them, to fire them, to run the books, to do local marketing. It's everything that you do. You're packaging that up so that the franchisee can do it. And that's your responsibility, and that's why they pay you an amount of money to start with to become the franchisee. There are 3 steps to franchising your business, and this is no more than you would have done when you started your business, I hope. First thing is you sit down, you write out a business plan, and you think, can I do it? Should I do it? Will it work? Will it make money? What do I need to do to get this business into existence? The planning phase. And that's what we do with you initially. We do an evaluation and a feasibility study, and we write a plan up for you. And we sometimes tell you if it isn't franchisable. Even if at the initial discussion we think there's potential and we get into a business, sometimes we find there are things that are not there that mean it's not currently franchisable. So we do a feasibility study. Secondly, then, we prepare you for franchising. The infrastructure. And here we're talking about protecting the IP, protecting the brand name, the legal agreement, writing the manuals, writing the trading program, all the stuff that you're going to need to have in place to help and develop your franchisees. And then we look at recruitment. Where are we going to find franchisees? What will we say to them? What documents do we need to have in place? How do we market? What system will we have to manage leads when they come in? So we do all of that stuff. And these are the things that you will need to think about before you get into the position of franchising. This takes time. From the beginning of talking about franchising your business, you could easily spend 6 months getting ready to franchise. You can do it quicker, but mostly we find that our clients are busy running a business anyhow. So we have to work together to do 2 things: continue the existing business whilst focusing on developing the franchise proposition and working out how it should all come together. So step 1 is thinking about what's it going to look like? Does it make sense? Will it make money for you? If it's not going to make money for you, why would you bother? And getting the outline plan. Then we go into the detail. We look at how to systemize the business, how to make the logistics work. Is the website good enough to support the larger business? Is your CRM system, if you have one, capable of extending out to a network of locations and a network of franchisees? Have we written down our operations, our policies and our procedures in such a way that people would even want to read them? There are some deadly dull manuals around. I can tell you that some of the worst manuals are only ever used as a doorstop. Good manuals are written in a way that encourage people to read them and to use them. And the manuals that we write come in 3 parts. Firstly, the operation, which is the day-to-day functioning of your business. That's what happens. That's how you make the widget. That's how you fry the burger. The second manual is how to get started in business. And the third one is the running of the business as the franchisee. Everything the franchisee needs to know through employment law, health and safety, business and bookkeeping practices. And they need to know all this stuff because chances are they don't currently know it. Many franchisees come from an employed background. So it means they only ever know a certain amount about how businesses have been run. And you're in the business now as the franchisor about teaching them everything of how to run a business, which you might not have thought about up until this point. But your franchise business is a lot more than showing people how to open a store and supply the goods, or how to cut that lawn or clean that oven, or whatever it might be. So we look at very carefully, look at the manuals. They define how you do what you do in the business. They define what you want the franchisee to do. And then we write a training program that turns that into life. When I say we, that's we, you and us, or you as the franchisor. You need to be able to have a defined training program. Training is in 2 parts. It's theoretical, classroom stuff, sitting around as we are here now. But you know, same as me, that theoretical training only sticks for a certain period of time. People forget it quite quickly. So you need to reinforce it with practical experience on the ground with those franchisees. So the training program comes in 2 halves, theoretical and initial and ongoing. And actually, training franchisees tends to be a long-term training program because franchisees, as all human beings, have strengths and weaknesses. And you will come to know your franchisees over time, And you'll realize that maybe they're terrific at the technical, but they're not very good at man management. So you're trying to develop them to make them better man managers. You're helping them to get better. You are their support, their mentor, their guide. The more of that stuff you do, the more likely you are to have good franchisees delivering good service to the customers, generating money in their stores, which means you get paid because you take a percentage of what they're doing. That's why you're franchising. And you will get paid, since I've raised the question of money, you tend to get paid in three ways. Firstly, the franchisee pays to come on board, what we call the entrance fee. Now, that in itself is not meant to be a profit center. It's meant to be cost recovery of bringing them on board, training them, supporting them, etc., getting them up and running. And to recover the costs that you will have incurred in setting the franchise business up. But it isn't meant to be taking lots of money straight onto your balance sheet, into your profit and loss, just because they've bought your franchise. You could do that, but you will probably find that you're just burdening them with an extra cost that they don't need at the start, which means they've got to put more money into it. Secondly, it will probably make you uncompetitive in terms of price when your franchise is looked at in relation to all the others that they can look at in the market. So essentially, you don't make much money on signing them up. That's the message. You make money on a percentage of their trading activity, whether it's a fixed fee, which for cash businesses, simple cash businesses, might be needed because you've got to think about how you control and make sure you get paid. But mostly it's a percentage of the top line, the gross turnover, excluding VAT. Your third income stream may be from supplying them with product or from arranging a central supply service from a core supplier and receiving a rebate on volume driven. And lastly, and the big prize, of course, is when you sell the business, either to the management or a trade sale, or you sell it to an investment business. That's when you make the money. But all that stuff comes later. I just threw that money stuff in now because that's really what interests people in franchising. So, recruiting franchisees, you will need to put together a prospectus. That's the initial piece of documentation that you will be able to pick up when you walk around the stands in the show talking to franchisors. They'll give you something. It's a bit of salesmanship. It's the hors d'oeuvre. It's the taster. It's meant to make you feel excited about that franchise so that you say, yes, I'd like to come and have a conversation with you. And when you go and have a conversation with that franchisor, they will then go into a process of discovering things about you. You will find out, the franchisee will find out something about, sorry, I got that wrong. You will find out about them, they will find out about you. And at a certain point, you'll provide them with what we call the disclosure document, discovery document, which we call the franchise information memorandum. And it's a document that sets out in detail what's in it for them, what they're going to do, how they're going to earn money, what you require of them, what the business marketplace is, what the background to the business is. It's a means of you being able to give them the complete picture in a logical and orderly way and avoiding misrepresentation by telling them stuff on the spur of the moment that you shouldn't say, which is perhaps an exaggeration. And if you do that, by the way, there's a chance if the franchisee doesn't succeed and he remembers that you said he'd make 50,000 in year one, which you got a bit carried away and said it and you shouldn't have done, they'll be, by chance, they'll be going off to see their lawyer and saying, he promised me 50,000, I haven't got it, and that lawyer will then be on your back. So you want to be very careful about things you say when you're recruiting. And in terms of recruiting, there are three marketing channels. There are websites, there are exhibitions, and there are publications. And there are all sorts of websites, franchise ones, your own personal website, websites in your business sector. So you need to look at where can we best find the franchisee we're looking at, what profile of person are we looking for, you need to think about the budget that you would have in order to bring them on board, and you'll need to be realistic about the fact that you're only trying to bring in so many and not too many. Don't award in a hurry, because if you do, you'll find that you've got people on board that you might subsequently regret. So you want to be very careful to go through a process with them, making sure they're the right people before you pick them. And when you're looking to pick them, they might have various characteristics. And I'm going to just show you 10 slides. Sorry, 10 points, 2 slides. This one. And then the next one. And you'll say, for each of you, some of the things in those slides will matter. I would suggest the ones that matter most are point 5, able to follow systems, motivated by customer satisfaction, first-class service, and team players and good listeners. Those other things are nice to have, but those 3 things are absolutely critical. So, the thing you need to do when you're getting ready to launch is to think about making sure that you get them right first time every time, reduce the error possibility wherever you can, make sure you train, launch them with a great deal of commitment and enthusiasm, support them, control them, be there for them, and lead them. And you will find that most franchise businesses have somebody who is seen as the head of the business, the helm, the personality, if you like. There needs to be somebody in the business, and if it isn't you, and it might not be your nature to be that person, then maybe one of your partner or your co-director is the person that would take that responsibility. But in recruiting, you want to have your franchisees aware that they're coming into a good business run by good business leaders and able to achieve. So, in summary, and the lady at the back is waving to say I've used my time, which is true. It takes time. 6 months, it will cost you money. Doing it well doesn't happen by chance. You need planning. Take advice. Don't overestimate, and enjoy the journey while you make it.